No problem. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Finance Committee. We're sorry we have a few minutes of a late start. We had a little bit of a streaming issue, and we wanted to make sure that the public was able to hear all of this meeting. So we're happy to see you this morning, and I'll go ahead and have Vice Chair Kelly, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Cole Kelly. I represent District 12. Um, Geographically, that covers Vineyard, Linden, part of Pleasant Grove, Orem, Wasatch County, Duchesne County, Uintah County, and Daggett County. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. And Chair Hymas?
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here. Matt Hymas. I represent District 10. Got west side of Utah County, west side of Salt Lake County, and all of Tooele County.
Okay, thank you so much for being here. And Member Booth, will you introduce yourself? I don't know if his volume's quite on. I just saw him pop on. Member Booth, can you hear me? We will come back to him, but I did see him, and I'm Cindy Davis, and I'll be chairing this meeting. And I represent District 11, which is the northernmost part of Utah County and the southernmost part of Salt Lake County. But um, I think I can speak for all of us when we say we really try to take a statewide approach in these committee meetings because not every area is represented, and we want to do good things for all students across the state. We have some staff introductions today, and looks like we have Cole Shakespeare, Fiscal Monitor Manager. Are you here, Cole?
Cole's actually out of the office today, Chair Davis.
Oh,
Apologies.
I was so
He-
excited for this one
he's
because I
traveling.
love his last name.
He may be
Well, I
able to
mean,
join.
those are two really good names, Chair Davis. I mean,
True.
you know, Cole and Shakespeare. Come on.
Cole and Shakespeare. Yes, they are.
Yeah, he's traveling. He may be able to join towards the end of the meeting. So I can give you a heads up when he's available if that.
You know what? Why don't we put him on next month's meeting since so
Yeah.
we don't have to interrupt his traveling.
So
Um, let's have Jeff Wilcox.
Hi, Jeff Wilcox. I guess I get to introduce myself, right?
Yes, please do.
Okay. I have been with USBE a little over 3 years. I'm a fiscal monitor for the special education. And something about me, I do love family and sports and the outdoors. Something that I like to dabble in is a little bit of art here and there, and love my job.
Sports and art. A Renaissance person, right?
Cover the
That's
gamut.
great. Well, we appreciate all that you do, and you know, special education is such an important part of what we do here at the state office and at the board, and we're just grateful. We have an amazing team, and I hear nothing but positive from parents and practitioners in the schools alike. So thanks for your good work with them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Member Booth, can you hear me? Okay, we'll swing back to him. And I don't see Member Bogus. So let's go ahead and start. We have item 3.1. We don't have any requests for public comment in this meeting today, so we'll move right into 3.2. And I don't want to jinx us, but let's see. Maybe we'll move along pretty quickly today. We'll see. We have R277-113, and we have Deputy Nui or Chief Audit Executive Debbie Davis. And this is Local Education Agency Fiscal and Auditing Policies.
Chair Davis, I am filling in for Deputy Nui for all the rules today.
Okay, thank you. Policy Analyst Connell, did I get that right?
Yep, Good to go.
Okay, go
So
ahead.
with this rule, what we're doing is at the first little bit, we removed the oversight category. So you see the changes in lines 3 and then all the way down in lines 41. And then the only other changes that have been placed into this rule are in starting on line 113. We added to the title and the internal audit department. And then down below, instead of superintendent, we changed in line 119 it to be the internal audit department, and then clarified in lines 125 and 126 that it would be the legislative fiscal analysts, the office of the legislative auditor general, and those are the changes in this rule.
Okay, pretty technical. Thank
Yes.
you. Seeing no hands, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll make that motion. I move that the committee continue and approve R277 113 Local Education Agency, LEA Fiscal and Auditing Policies Draft 1 on first reading and forward to the full board for continuation and approval on second and final reading.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor that the committee continue and approve R277-113 Local Education Agency Fiscal and Auditing Policies Draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading. See, one hand, Member Hummus.
One hand, that's okay. Or sorry about that. Just wondering, Greg, I know you went through there. I checked the agenda memo. For the background, why are we adding the internal audit department in there? Is this new or is this something that's been ongoing anyway? On 119, we're removing the superintendent shall provide training. Now we're saying the internal audit department shall. What's kicking this change?
I'm not privy 100% to that. I'm filling in again for this rule. If Debbie Davis is on the call, she might know better. I apologize, I don't have more information, but I can look into that for you.
I'd ask
And
Cindy, Chair Davis, I don't know if this was covered in your prep meeting by chance.
well, we didn't necessarily flesh it out in prep meeting, but it's only for LEAs to establish their internal audit program. So I'm guessing this only impacts LEAs that are more than 10,000, and they are required by law to have their own internal audit departments.
So,
And so
Chair
instead
Davis,
of
sorry.
Superintendent Hart giving that training and materials to help set those up, it would be CAE Davis. Sam Uri, go ahead.
Yeah, Sam Uri, School Finance Director. Historically, the internal audit department has been delivering and continues to deliver and provide these training materials for LEAs of all sizes. All sizes need to have at least an audit committee, right? And so this is not a change in practice in any way. It's just a little bit of a clarification that the internal audit department does this rather than any other staff in the building.
Chair, one more question if I could.
Please.
There's been some discussion about defining internal audit and what that looks like. Internal audit, as now we have as maybe just board, maybe agency and board have extended that definition to mean internal audit for all LEAs almost, right? Like we've put Debbie Davis and her team over auditing education in the state. Whereas we're trying to get clarity from the legislator saying, is internal audit internal to the agency? And would that change this at all? Is this something that would be if we were told internal audit is to the agency, you make sure your agency runs and functions appropriately, not over the entire state's education. I don't know if that makes sense and if that would change this or if we would just have to bring that back if a definition was to come forth. I feel like I'm rambling now, but those are some of the thoughts that have been on my mind.
I think we'd have to bring it back if there a change came
Okay.
personally, but
Yeah. All right. Thank you. That's it, Chair. I won't interrupt before
No,
voting.
thank you. This is why we're here to discuss these. And Director Yuri, did I remember that wrong? Does there need to be an audit department specifically for LEAs larger than 10,000? A separate independent audit department that's in the LEA?
Chair Davis, I will have to get, I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. That sounds right to me, but I
And
will look that up and make sure.
it's you can let me know offline later too. It's not, I'm just curious if I remembered that right or inaccurately, because it would be interesting to know. So that's
Chair,
interesting. Every LEA, no matter what size, has to have an audit committee.
Chair,
Oh, yes.
CFA Davis is on with us now.
Hello, CAE Davis. We just had a question about, I had a question about if LEAs over 10,000 are required to have an internal audit department.
They are required to have an internal audit function. It doesn't specify the size of that function, but Utah code specifies for the LEA internal audit that yes, if you have more than 10,000 students, you are required to have the internal audit function. And of course, every LEA must have an audit committee.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. That's helpful. Okay, seeing no other hands, we have a motion on the floor that the committee continue and approve R277-113 Local Education Agency Fiscal and Auditing Policies Draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? That passes unanimously. And I think I heard Member Booth. Can you hear me, Member Booth?
Yes, I can. I apologize. My connection this morning was not working well, but we're up and operating now.
No problem. Would you like to introduce yourself to us quickly? We
Sure.
skipped you earlier.
I am in Spanish Fork, Nebo School District, and Provo City School District, uh, uh, and very happy to represent those areas and to combine our best efforts to do what's right with finance in the entire USBE agency.
Thank you. And just for the public's awareness, we're all doing this meeting 100% remotely today. Next month will be our quarterly in-person meeting at the USBE building. And our area of focus, which is finance and data and technology, these areas in general in the field lend themselves to more remote working. And so we have many remote workers from a lot of different places. And so this is kind of a way for us to understand that our department, more than any other, has remote workers. And so we do some of these 100% remotely. And then once a quarter, we try to come back and get that human connection for those who can and have our meetings in the building. And hopefully this hybrid is working some for everybody. Let's move on to number 3.3, action R277-109, legislative reporting and accountability. This looks like it's just a continuation, but policy analyst Greg Connell, are there any changes or is this just a continuation?
You are correct. It's just a continuation.
Okay. Then seeing no hands, the committee, well, I'll take a motion. I'll let someone else make the motion.
Sure. I'll move that the committee continue R277-109 legislative reporting and accountability on first reading and forward to the board for continuation on second and final reading.
Thank you. And seeing no hands, we have a motion on the floor that the committee continue R277-109 legislative reporting and accountability on first reading and forward to the board for continuation on second and final reading. Those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Those opposed? That passes unanimously with Member Bogus absent, and I should have said that on R277-113 as well. Item 3.4, personalized competency-based learning grant programs. Um, Policy analyst Greg Connell, I'm going to explain this if that's okay, and then you step in and tell me what I got wrong. Because I had a question on this because it looks like a simple, it looks like it's simple because the legislature repealed this program. They repealed the funding and repealed the program. And so it seems like, oh, it's simple, it's going to be repealed, and everything's crossed out in the rule. But then on the agenda item, it says that we're continuing it. So I was confused when we were preparing for the meeting and asked for some clarification and found out that this is like one of the first times our staff has ever seen anything like this, but it's because it actually ends in September, which is odd. So we're just continuing it until September when it repeals, and then it will be repealed. So we're doing both a continuation and a repeal. Um, I don't see any hands. So seeing no
I've got a
hands, I'll
hand,
take them.
Chair.
Oh, Chair Hymas.
Is it repealed like September 1st by September board meeting?
I think it was September 1st,
Okay.
but that's what I believe Director Newey, Deputy Newey told me, but I'm trying to remember if
It's
it
okay. I
was.
just wonder, I mean,
I
we
think
won't
it's
have
September
to
1st.
we won't have to make changes for the last month. I just don't want to get in this space where it's like, well, if it's here for till September 30th, I want to change this for the last 3 weeks. I doubt that will happen, but
No, I don't. I think it's September 1st.
okay. Thank
So
you.
Chair Davis, there's two actions that we're taking on this, right? In this committee meeting, are we both continuing and repealing in this committee meeting today?
Yes.
Okay.
I wonder if we should add the words until September.
To the continuation.
I would say yes. On the first one, let's say that the committee continue R277-712 through the September end date.
So would it be the end of August or would it be the
Since I'm not positive on the date and Deputy Newey isn't here, Specialist Connell, do you know the exact date?
I don't have the exact date, but just wanted to reiterate what you said is basically the idea is that if we don't extend it, then it will expire before we can go through the repeal process with this rule. There's a process that you have to do when repealing the rule, and it doesn't look good when the rule just expires. So that's the reason for continuing and repealing.
Okay. So I think maybe Vice Chair Kelly, would it be okay with you if I make the continuation motion and then you make the repeal motion?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I move that the committee continue R277-712 personalized competency-based learning grant programs through the September end date and forward to the board for approval. Those in favor, seeing no hands, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Are are you opposed, Randy, or are you for it?
I'm for it. It was
You're for
just
it.
slow.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you so much. That passes unanimously with Member Bogus absent. And then Vice Chair Kelly, do you want to make the next one?
Sure. Yeah. I move that the committee repeal R277-712 personalized competency-based learning grant programs after, should we add in there after the September date?
We can,
And
after the September end date.
yeah, after the September end date on first reading and recommend to the board repeal the rule on second and final reading.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor that the committee repeal R277-712 personalized competency-based learning grant programs after the September end date on first reading and recommend the board repeal the rule on second and final reading. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? That passes unanimously with Member Bogus absent. Thank you. 3.5, Action R277-720 Reimbursement Program for Early Graduation from Competency Schools. This is the exact same scenario. So this is interesting because like, 11, 12 years ago, this tells you how big the swings are in education, even just in our own state. There was a massive convening down in southern Utah by all of our legislators and board members and practitioners at the local level. And they said competency-based education is where everybody's heading. We're changing from Carnegie credits. We're doing all these things, put a lot of money into it and spent a lot of time studying it. And that was going to be it for the future. And now we're here. We found out halfway through that kids actually wanted to stay in school. So they'd get their credits through competency and be ready to graduate early, and then they didn't want to leave. So then the legislature had to go back in and put this into place that funded schools that the kids had all their credits to give them extra funding for more credits on top of what was required for graduation. It was really an interesting situation. But now, since the competency laws are being repealed, now we're repealing this extra funding for those students. And then I think, Vice Chair Kelly, if you and I want to tackle this one again, we'll probably need to put that September end date in again, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Actually, we do. So let's go ahead and put that September end date in, and I'll do this one. I move that the committee continue R277-720 reimbursement program for early graduation from competency schools through the September end date and forward to the board for approval. Seeing no hands, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? That passes unanimously with Member Bogus absent. And Chair Kelly, can you tackle the next one the same way we did that other one?
Yep. I move that the committee repeal R277-720 reimbursement program for early graduation from competency schools after the September end date on first reading and recommend the board repeal the rule on second and final reading.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor that the committee repeal R277-720 reimbursement program for early graduation from competency schools on first reading and recommend the board repeal the rule on second and final reading. And seeing no hands, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? That passes unanimously with Member Bogus absent. Thank you. Item 3.6, we have our early literacy research study, and this is being proposed by members Davis, Member Booth, Vice Chair Bollinger, and Member Earl. And just to explain it kind of briefly, this is kind of how we are doing research with the federal mineral lease funds for like the playground situation for the schools with the students with special needs and some other research studies that we're doing. It is a literacy app that does not teach students, it teaches parents how to teach students early literacy based on the science of reading. So we are looking now at removing quite a bit of technology from K through 3 classrooms based on this last legislative session. I am assuming that is going to filter down through the early learning preschool level where they have a lot of money going into having little children on devices. And so as this shift moves away from children being on devices, we're thinking, what are we going to do to replace that to beef up those early literacy skills? And hoping that we can spend some time researching this app with some pilot people, parents, and seeing, can this help our students? And you probably already read the summary in the backup, but that's basically the gist of it. So I will go ahead and make the motion and then entertain any questions. I move that the committee recommends that the Utah State Board of Education approve funding this project. Well, I'm going to say the early literacy research study using federal mineral lease funds from their discretionary account. Chair Hymas.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of things. First off, I am so happy to see this. I get questions regularly from board members saying, what is our role? What can we do? And this is so good, right? This actually can move the needle on what we are trying to do. We talk about different things. We had a 15-hour meeting yesterday or 14-hour meeting yesterday, right? And we didn't talk about this stuff at all, but this is where we should be talking. So very, very excited for this opportunity to see this study hopefully go out, right? We hopefully it'll get through committee and then through the board. But I'm a little disappointed that it's kindergarten and first grade rural Title I and targeted assistance schools. How do we just blast this thing to everybody? That's like I feel bad that the parents and maybe I could just do this for my own school, but how do I get them involved, right? Like this is so good that the student doesn't have to have a device because that was one of my concerns, right? We're putting technology back in the hands of the family, but it's to the parent to teach them. It's so good. This is a train the trainers moment. And so
Absolutely.
I'd love to see this expand. I get that we can't cover everything where there's only X amount of dollars. I'm jealous. I kind of wish I was rural now. Right.
Yeah.
But I just wonder, I guess I don't wonder. I'm just talking myself through this, but excited to see this happen. I wish it was larger, and maybe it will be, maybe it will grow, but I appreciate you and those who signed on and putting this forward.
And I'm going to respond briefly, and then Dr. Rachel Schichter is here from the app itself, the company. And I don't know if even company is the right word, but I think the reason it is smaller at this point is because this is a rather new app, and they're taking the science of reading, which is evidence-based, but they need to also find out if the app is due through research, make sure that we're using evidence-based practices. I don't know if I'm saying that right, Doc. I don't know if I'm saying your name right. I'm going to let you speak for yourself, and then I'll come back to Member Booth and Vice Chair Kelly.
Sure. Hello. Very nice to meet you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm Dr. Rachel Schichter. I'm the president of LXD Research. So I run the research organization that has partnered with the foundation and Renala to put forward this this project. This is there are a lot of free or quite costly apps in the App Store that claim to help parents teach their children to read. None of them have rigorous research that shows that their methods or their tools are actually effective. That is really the key to this project, and to understand in a rigorous way. I've been doing research on this population for 15 years, over a dozen rigorous research studies on supporting families, supporting schools to teach K-1. My background is actually, before I became a researcher, I was an educator, a parent educator. I really feel like this project has brought everything together that we are looking to do to support children and families in these early grades for literacy success. But we need to test it. That's the whole point of the project this year, is to understand it, to identify those barriers. How are families and schools meeting and conquering those barriers so we can learn as we expand?
Which is really the purpose for the federal mineral lease funds. It's to say, what do we have that has potential to make a difference in education? And we feel like this is one of those things that has a potential to make a difference. Member Booth.
I'm so excited about this project, and I'm thrilled that we can start small because that allows us the flexibility to really take a deep dive and make sure that we've got it right so that we can then expand the opportunity to engage a much larger population of parents across the state of Utah to have just a great experience with their children. I think that the approach, taking a bite-sized chunk and making sure we've got it right and that things are working, that the app is responsive, that parents can figure out how to interact with the app with their children. And then once we've got all of that tested with a smaller group, particularly a targeted area that is very much in need of this kind of support, and then expand it to Matt's school and every other school across the state, so that we really truly are doing what we say we want to do, and that is to engage with parents in the education of their children and support them in every way possible. So thank you, Dr. Schechter, for your work, your research, and for your commitment to doing this right, so that parents really will benefit for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Kelly?
Yeah, just I want to clarify a couple things. First, uh, Chair Hymas, Tooele, when I grew up, was considered rural. So, it just goes to show you the growth that's happened out in Tooele County, right? Um, but I want to clarify what the funds will be spent for. So this is federal mineral lease money, and federal mineral lease money is used for research projects. Is the money,
Must be.
yeah, is the money being used to pay the research firm to look at, the effectiveness of this app?
Uh, I'm going to let Dr. Schechter and Deputy Jones get into the specifics of that. Dr. Schechter?
Yeah, so the way that I'm not sure if you could pull back up the proposal that has the options with the pricing. So the research firm has committed to do a stable price for the study. And what's been able to be modulated is the number of families served. So as you can see on the top line there, the LXD research effectiveness study for 1 year. We are giving a nonprofit rate to the partners at a $50,000 flat rate for all of the activities that we have identified as being critical for this first year.
And then those other amounts that are under that are the things that are going to be paid for the licensing and the family support and such. And you can see the breakdown there.
Yeah, that training and launch and family support. It was my recommendation that this program is still a bridge connection from schools to families. That this is, this is not a library program. We're not putting an app in a library that's going maybe to families, maybe not going to families. This is going to be directed in partnership with the schools. The schools that participate, the teachers will know that families have this. That's what the training, launch, and family support is about, that line item. And it's a critical line item that I've encouraged that we really understand what is needed so it can be scaled, potentially really scaled as we move forward. I think that's the most unknowns right now, is how do we support schools to use to have these apps be used with families. For example, curriculum night. How is it being discussed? How is it being supported? We have parent-teacher conferences. How will we be incorporating conversations about the use of these literacy games at home during those conversations? This is the biggest opportunity for learning, and that's another reason why that item is there.
So the training will train both educators and families?
The idea is that the app does everything with the families, because our goal is for it to be actually not human facilitated. Our goal is for the family to be able to understand the app, use the app without any training at all from a human. What's really key though for this project and for the goal of this technology is to strengthen the bridge between families and schools as early literacy partners. And that's where we have the most to learn, because this kind of work hasn't been really done before. Not at this scale and not with tools like this.
And what we have currently with Upstart is a computer and a computer program, but also no training from adults. So, and actually, I don't want to misspeak there, because I think that that program may give some support to the parents who are working with the app, but the student is interacting with the app as opposed to the parent interacting with the student having been trained by this app. Can we hear from Deputy Jones? How much money do we have in our federal mineral lease currently available?
So approximately 1 million, or Deputy Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones, approximately $1 million. But then we, yeah, so I mean, this is supportable by current fund status. As you know, we're going through year-end close, so that balance is going to go up, but it's not available yet. So, from a
It will
funding
go up pretty
standpoint,
soon.
yeah, I mean, we're pretty close to ending year-end close. So if I may, Chair Davis, there's some other questions that came up that were sent to me. I'm not sure regarding the research project, and for the use of federal mineral lease funds, as the board knows, or this committee members know from the board, there's always concern about the robustness of the research, and you mentioned or Chair Davis about the recent funding study related to the playground equipment, and this is certainly I believe strongly that it's in the wheelhouse for acceptable use of federal mineral lease. One question though that came up is what is the baseline data, and maybe it's in here, but there still seems to be some confusion. So, parents use the app, and obviously, they're parents of students. So what will be the baseline data to compare, and how are you controlling for the correlation between the use of the app and then the students' improvement, or that they want a little bit more specificity in that regard? So, through you, Madam Chair, to Dr.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So this is what's really exciting, is we are able to do, especially with enough students, so that is key. We do need enough families to participate, to do, so the Every Student Succeeds Act, right, has levels of evidence. This will be an ESSA level 2 study, which is there's an opportunity for it to be a random control trial if we want to do that, but I think we should start with the quasi-experimental design and really have volunteers say, I want to try this, and try and to participate. I think that's really important at this stage, because we're trying to learn about how it's working with families who are interested. But what's really exciting about that is if we offer it to school buildings, every family in the building and with a K-1 student will have the opportunity to opt in. So we'll have families who have the opportunity to opt in. We have the families who opt in and then maybe try it once and never log in again. I hope not, but possibly. And then we have those who use it maybe regularly or a lot or a little, this huge dosage range, right? So in our analysis, we will be organizing the families into groups. And then what I also would like to do is to identify school districts that might have students or schools with students who might have similar characteristics, even if they're not in the eligible schools, to act as a comparison group as well. So we'll have a comparison group of schools who have no access, no eligibility, we'll have families with access and eligibility who decide not to opt in. And then we also will have those who opt in and a variety of use from there. So we're going to be able to look at a dose response as well as something called an intent to treat. So the families who had the opportunity versus the families who did not have the opportunity.
So if I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
so the question though comes up to, is each student that, well, so the parent opts in and the students did, what are you using, like end of year Acadians?
Oh, Acadians.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you. Sorry. Yes. So
no, go ahead.
we'll be using both the Acadians scores of students at the beginning of kindergarten, middle of kindergarten, end of kindergarten. And then for our first graders, we can even be following students over the year before they had access to the app and then the year that they had the access to the app, which would be 6 time points, which is very exciting because that is how many time points we would need to do growth analysis. So I have a whole family of statisticians very excited about the opportunity to look at this Acadians data in multiple ways. And we'll also have the app data of how often they're using it and what kinds of things they're doing on it as well.
And just to further clarify, there's no, beyond just the use of the app, there's no funding or it goes towards a parent's use of, like, to pay the parents. There's no stipends, or it's purely volunteer. There's no, exchange of funds for, a parent opting in to do that. It's just that they have to do it. And then, you use the term, and I'm doing this through Madam Chair, so these are some of the other questions that have come up. You use the term eligibility. What does that mean? Eligible for what? And
Yep. So this grant funding, sorry, I'm not as familiar with the rules of the grant, but it's only for some schools. I heard another chair member mention that like their school's not eligible because their school isn't in the area, the area where the funds are supposed to be spent.
That was me. I hear you.
Okay.
so that term used, eligibility, is for those schools in that. Okay. Yeah. So they just want to tell you. Okay. All right, Madam Chair. Hopefully that helps. So
It does help. The only thing I think we need to decide is, we've got these funding options here, and Dr. Schechter, maybe you can help us understand the scope. If we go with the base or the expansion or the full, how many students is that going to impact? What is that going to look like?
That's a good question. I thought that there were the numbers of students in this at one point. Paul, if you have those other, yeah, Paul, if you have my buddy Paul's here. I don't know if you have the numbers of the number of students, or we could do the math real quick. But really, what the difference is between the packages is the number of students. As you can see, 143. That's divided by $99. That's how many families would be able to have the app in the base price. And then it's over, another 100,000 more for the full. And that's where you really see the exponential increase, the number of families. That's a direct increase of the number of families. And then the training, launch, and support, that's organized by school. So that's school level support, school level launch, school level training. So that's just a little bit lower, but the idea is that would be more sites trained. So each additional site would have more teachers and staff that would get support and training, and then more families that would get the app.
Okay. So I guess that's what we need to decide, and I'm having a kind of a side conversation here also with our literacy specialist, who says that she does support this and that we need to get our families trained, and that she has met with our literacy specialist has met with those developing this a handful of times, and probably counseled together. So I guess committee members, where do you want to start with this?
I'm doing some math. So the math is what the 143,550 divided by 99. So that would be 1,450. So once we have 1,450 families who have signed up, we've reached the cap for the base. Is that accurate?
If you go to the bottom of page 3, I think that maybe the numbers are there.
And while you're looking those numbers, our literacy specialist did have a question. If the family has the app and they have multiple children, like say they have two kids that are that age, one K and one first grade, can they both use it under the same license?
Yes, and that's another very exciting thing is that all the siblings in the building, whether they're little tiny tykes or they're students maybe who also could be helping support teaching their younger siblings, it's a family price, so there's no
Because
additional price for additional
okay.
children.
So yeah, so if say there's a kindergartner participating and a first grade participating, it's still one parent. So the parent gets the app for the training.
Right, and may I extend, it's also any adult in the household or family, not just the parent.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I guess moving forward, the question I have, so let's say that we find that this is, and I know money, I know, the importance of kids reading is really the priority here, but I'm trying to get my arms around, okay, so the base amount would reach 1,450 families, okay? $99 is the price per family that USBE will be subsidizing, basically, right? Moving forward, so then Matt says, "Hey, I want my school," and we find out, hey, all schools are going to want to do this. Down the road, do we foresee? And Chair Davis, I don't, maybe it's a hypothetical that's not a fair question to ask right now, but would we expect USBE to continue to subsidize this for all families in Utah?
No, this is an isolated research project.
Okay.
And I don't think USBE has the funds to do something like this on a continued basis. And Deputy Jones is shaking his head. So
Yeah,
I
right.
think that I am right.
Right. Yeah. So
This is this is just for us to figure out, is this something that can help our parents, especially during this season of pulling back all this technology. We
right.
got to
So
have something that's
yeah.
going to replace it so we don't end up with holes, in my opinion.
Yeah. So that, I guess the question I guess I'm trying to get to then is then moving forward, how do we expand this? How do we offer it to more Utah families without a cost of $99 per family?
I would hope that the cost as it scales would go down. I noticed in this, like just for a research project, the more families that come on board, 83% of the funds will go to families, 87% of the funds to families on the expansion, 90% on the full. But even then, the individual cost per family, I would hope, would reduce as it scales, but that's not something we can really control. But I think the USBE may want to seek a legislative request. They're putting $24 million, I think, right now into Upstart. Deputy Jones, correct me if I'm wrong. And that's technology that 3 and 4-year-olds are on every day. So maybe they want to keep that. Maybe they don't. But if their trend continues of pulling technology back from K through 3 and they expand down to preschool, what is going to be there to help with some of the literacy building as we move forward? And this in particular is for kindergarten and first grade. But I think there's a lot to think about. Deputy Jones, did you have a thought?
Yeah, sorry, man, for some reason I can't raise my hand, so I'll just interrupt if that's okay. So, but for consideration here, we need to stay within the guardrails of a research project, right? This isn't intended to be a, aspect of, promoting a particular, we're really just testing the efficacy of the for future consideration, not only for this particular app, but for, to establish whether or not these types of apps or applications do increase the thing. So this is not in any way, shape, or form to be construed as a, sales pitch or anything like that. It's just really trying to find out whether or not this type of process with the parents makes a difference to the student that fits into the use of funds for, research and development to determine what I just tried to articulate, right? This isn't an ongoing, vendor specific or vendor related thing. This is really an attempt to determine or demonstrate whether something like this makes a difference in the academic excellence or academic progress of a student, which is why those questions were so pointed as to, well, what are you using for the baseline and what are you doing for that? Now, through you, Madam Chair, to Board Member Kelly's question, about that, right? That we would have to then, look at, when you said this, to looking at requesting funding and then do a fair, a procurement process based on, the thing, but, that's a little bit way further down the road because, we have to measure this first. So that's the reason we do this, is to see, if there is promise or, a very good potential for return on investment into something like this. But ultimately, it's really to see if it benefits the students, right? And that's why we can accept the $5.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And what we do know is our literacy specialist, Julie Clark, has seen what happens on the back end of the parents using this. Again, this is a parent app, not a student app. And she says it does align with the science of reading. So we do know that there is evidence base there. What we don't know is exactly what Deputy Jones said. Will parents use an app like this? Will it make a difference for kids? This is what we need to figure out. At Member Booth, and then we've got to decide what we want to do on these three and make a motion. Member Booth, go ahead.
So I am feeling like, as part of the experiment, as part of the data gathering and understanding, wrapping our minds around how this might work, how this might benefit students, we have one component that is a real variable that we're not familiar with. We have not worked with parents in this way. I think it could be and should be highly effective, but we really don't know what the response will be. So it seems to me that if we were to do the base, choose the base level, and if we got some good response, great, and we'll get the information that we need to. But if there were just an enormous response of parents really wanting to do this, I would love it if there were a way that we could construct this trial usage so that it could expand maybe to the expansion, because there was so much demand. We don't know if there'll be demand. If we start at the base and we're having to go out and rustle in the bushes trying to find people that really will commit and not just sign up for it, but will sign up and use it so that we're getting the data that we need, then maybe we're okay with just the base. But if there's an overwhelming interest in parents wanting to do this, more data, a wider sampling of students and their progress, I think could be very helpful in making a determination as to whether we should seek legislative support for an ongoing program that could be extended to all students in this particular age group. So I wish there were a way we could construct our motion as we send it to the board so that we could start with a baseline, but if there is an overwhelming, if it appears that we can get parents to engage, which is the total, the main purpose of this event, then we could possibly respond to those many parents that want to respond and get more data so that we have a stronger understanding of how this could impact. Because even with the expansion, we're only talking 2.1% of the number of students in each grade that we're servicing. So it's a small sampling. So any ideas of how we might be able to
Yeah, could you add the words beginning with the base level at the end of the motion?
with the possibility of
And Deputy
expansion
Jones,
depending on parent demand or something like that,
why,
or parent engagement. And then we could look at coming back and maybe bumping up the request for min release funds because there is that interest and this is an opportunity. If we can get parents to engage with this, how many other ways can we get parents to engage? But right now, they've been sitting on the fence for a lot of years, expecting us to do a lot. Uh, and we have done a lot. If we could make this happen in this particular arena, what could we do in the
in
concerns
other,
that have been expressed about mathematics and the concerns, getting parents involved in this process? And I think there are willing parents, but they have, you got to learn how to do that. We've had some experiences where parents are becoming more involved with their children, with their families in um, a particular um, church that is a part of our fabric here in the Utah area. And when it first started, parents were home-centered learning and worship. That's kind of a new idea. Uh, but it is taking off in a big way uh, and has had a tremendous impact. So we may have to teach and prepare parents and invite and get them hooked on the idea. When they see the difference it makes in their kids, then they'll be very excited to engage and to be involved and to be able to be a part of seeing their child grow and develop in this important way.
um, so do you want to make that motion, Member Booth? Deputy Jones, can you give a thumbs up if
Well,
we can revisit this if there's more parent demand than we expect, or we
I
cannot?
strongly advise that this has to be controlled and say you can't,
Okay,
this is a military term, you can't creep the gate. We have to have the test done.
before we
accept,
go out
yes,
for more.
yes, we
Okay.
have to accept in the interest of a research and development project of testing of a particular material source, what have you, for the benefit or increase of educational experiences for students has to be controlled. You have to either accept just, what they're proposing, how many parents, the two. If you try to say, well, let's start and then just add, that's more of a procurement type aspect, right? To
Okay,
see.
so we need to start with what we're
You
gonna
have to
do and
stay
see
within
it
the
through.
guardrails of it being a research project specific to a group of students that as your baseline, right? As your
Okay.
two. Otherwise, we risk this going into more of a, market share, like increasing use of a particular outside entity's product, right? So you need to just please, keep it for that. Now later on, yes, if when the results come back, then you can do that. But for the purpose of a research and development project, you don't want to creep this into that. You should establish at least what you feel is the quantitative amount of students, of participants of that to and control for that. Get the results, and then that's how you make it.
And Dr. Schrechter said the same in the comments.
Yes.
Says critical for the study
Yeah.
that the sample is
So-
determined at the start. So let's take a motion. Which one do you want to do, members? If you want to move one, what do you want to do?
The expansion puts us at 2,000 families, just over 2,000 families. I would recommend expansion.
Okay. Do you want to make that motion
Let's
and
see.
add expansion level at the end? At the expansion level at the end or something?
Sure. I move that the committee recommends that the Utah State Board of Education approve funding the early literacy research study using federal mineral lease funds from their discretionary account at the, what level was it called again?
Expansion.
At the expansion level of $397,200.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor that the committee recommends that the Utah State Board of Education approve funding for funding the early literacy research study using federal mineral lease funds from their discretionary account at the expansion level of $397,200. I'm looking for hands. And seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote then. Those in favor say aye.
I do. Sorry,
Oh,
Chair
that's
Davis.
fine.
I do want to ask one more question, and
Okay.
this may be an obvious question, maybe may already be known, and I may be just showing a little bit of my ignorance. But is the developer of the app and the research firm connected in any way, or are they two separate companies?
Oh,
Thank you for that question. LXD Research is an independent company. We have worked with, in fact, a lot of organizations that are competitors. 95% Group, Hegarty, EPS Learning, IMSI, Scholastic. So we have clients that all compete with each other because we're looking to understand how the products work, how the curriculum work, and what are the barriers and learnings from implementing these programs over a 1-year period or however long it is. I know the reason why she came to me, and this all happened so fast, is because I worked at Lexia. I was the director of research at Lexia Learning. I actually had the opportunity to work in an extended way with the board in the past. But now I run my own independent research firm.
Okay. Super.
I'm really glad you brought that up, though, Vice Chair Kelly, because I know Vice Chair Bollinger had a question about the developer is also on the Science of Reading panel in Utah, but there are literacy experts from across the country on the Science of Reading panel. And so she went and asked our Assistant Attorney General Cooper if that was a conflict of interest if one of the developers was on the Science of Reading panel. And she said it was not because she is not voting to implement this study. So
Super, thank you.
thank you. Okay. Seeing no other hands, those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed?
Me.
Okay, that passes with 4 in favor and Member Bogus opposed. Member Bogus, welcome.
Oh, hi.
We missed you in our introductions.
I'm sorry.
Well,
My
let me
computer
thank
restarted
Dr.
about 50
Schroeder.
times this morning. I don't know why. It happened yesterday too.
What happened?
My computer just kept recycling the startup. I don't understand. It did that yesterday in the board meeting twice, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. So
Oh no, I'm
it
so
just
sorry.
cycled through that, but I'm sure you guys did good work while I was gone, but I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, think about a fun introduction you can do. I'm going to thank Dr. Schechter. Thank you for coming and helping us with the research understandings. And we appreciate that. We'll close this out. And Member Bogus, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. I'm Christina Bogus. I represent Taylorsville, West Jordan, and Kearns here on the Utah State Board of Education, and am excited to see what we have today. Thanks, Chair
Okay,
Davis.
thank you. So nice to have you here. Okay, that finishes our action items. So let's go through our information items and let's start with the Public Education Equalization Stabilization Restricted Fund. We have Director Paula Plant to give us an update on this, if any at this point. Dr. Plant? Okay, let's move to 3.8, and if she has something to share later, we'll circle back. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I apologize. I can't raise my hand. I can speak to it on the
Okay,
information I want to.
sure.
If we'll
Thanks.
pull up the the memo, if committee members had an opportunity to review the follow-up information that Paula was to put together is actually in the memo, right? It's built in there. So let's see. Yes, so you can see here with the background how it was established, and then we're moving along the lines of the concern or consideration of working or jointly addressing with the legislature the concerns of using funding from the land trust for other purposes that may, to some, feel like it's not being used for its intended purpose, right? Or it's being duplicative or, what have you. So Paula had put this together in response to that for your consideration. That's why it's only an information item, though. There's really no action here, but if
Should be
maybe okay, yes, and that's we give you this information, and then
next time.
yeah, and if you want to do an action item, we can certainly build that on the next committee at your direction. But then this is the gist of it, for what we feel would be beneficial to you as a policy or decision maker on whether to further pursue an action item, and moving towards, some kind of reconciliation with the legislature with the concerns of many, related to recent activities related to the trust. But then
Do you feel that this is proposal, there's wisdom in this?
Yes, I do. I think it's very informative. It's, shows the they always kill me with these acronyms. The economic stabilization account, right? They use this big Pierce thing. So, but anyway, so key takeaway are these recommendations, and these are when we make recommendations as a staff, we're not trying to unduly influence you, we're trying to duly inform you. So we use words like consider, right? So, consider parameters for the allowable appropriate one-time use of account balances that exceed the cap. Sorry for the trust fund acronym. Representative Snyder, welcome to meeting with board leadership. So if you wanted to just do that before you had an action item, and to that, we would encourage that as staff is, leadership with Representative Snyder. And then of course there's, HB 521, the public education stabilization account. Representative Walter and Senator Sambo, they introduced it in 2026, and it creates a new permanent fund. So that's really, we're asking you to consider or be situationally aware of these, pieces of legislation that could, should they pass, influence the use of the trust land, for the foreseeable future. Right now, that's what we would recommend. I know this is an information item, is that just, maybe leadership consider meeting with these respective legislators, and
Yeah.
families from, as the chair of finance.
And the way this happened with DNR caused a lot of concern for a lot of people, but we could look at it, we don't want to look at it as an opportunity to just complain. we can look at this as an opportunity to collaborate with the legislature to say, well, what will this look like moving forward? And what would wise guardrails, if you will, or processes or practices look like in the future? So I think these are good recommendations. They would, of course, Chair Hymas might have more of an opinion. I'm happy to help with this, but this isn't an action item, but is this something that board leadership would be willing to look into as far as the meetings and such, Chair Hymas?
Yeah, I mean, we're of course happy to look into it and see what it would entail. We just are always mindful of time and resources, right?
Right. Yeah, I think so. But I think this is a big one. And the fact that I don't know why this is the piece that always comes back to me is that that money was sitting over there for so long, earning interest in a DNR account, not earning interest in the education account. But the low logistics of all of these processes, I think this is a great opportunity to talk about these things at this point and say, what is this going to look like moving forward? Um, in a healthy, respectful dialogue way. So I would love to see this come back as an action item. Do we want to request that as a committee?
I'm not opposed to it, Cindy.
I'm all for just the exploration and the discussion to see how we can safeguard and utilize in the most effective manner possible for our students this resource. And to be on the same page and understand what representative and senators are thinking in regards to this so that we're better prepared in our ongoing conversations as we move along. So I just think it's an opportunity to become educated and a little bit more on top of understanding what's happening.
So do we need to request this to come back as an agenda item as a committee? Do we need to vote, or can we just say
You can
as a
just,
committee we'd like to see this come back on the agenda
yeah, it's just with,
in action?
where staff are, going along the lines that 3 or more board members here in the committee are supportive of it becoming an action item. So where we have the benefit of having our esteemed chair here, he can say, okay, 3 members want it as an action item. So yeah, you don't need to vote on it. We just,
Yeah.
there'll be it. Well, I don't think so, but
I wouldn't think so either, Scott. We don't vote on the forms that come in.
right, exactly. So, I mean, I guess, you could fill the form out and say, it's an action, but, I'd leave that
Yeah,
up to
but we
you.
don't need a form if it comes out as a committee request.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That'll be great then. Thank you for that. Item 3.8, operational and legal framework update for Utah System of Higher Education, USHE, and the Utah Data Research Center, UDRC Bridge System. And it says we have Director of Data and Statistic, Aaron Bruff.
Thank you.
And I apologize, I am jumping off a phone call with a district, and so
Okay.
we're just going from there. Thank you for letting me join with you for a few minutes this morning. Information item, letting you be aware that working with, when we give you some just additional background information real quick, working with, sorry, there you go. Over the last 3 years, we've had a grant from the federal government. It's the SLDS grant. We are now about ready to approach the 4th year of this, and it's the work that we're doing is called Digital Bridge or Bridge. And so what we have in front of you is just some information. Is this last legislative session, there were some updates to USHE and their requirements, and they put together their rule, which is our 1002 UDRC participating state agency access. And so this is what the information I'm just providing for you to say, okay, they've gone through and they're following state law for themselves as well. And there's two components or two areas within their agreement that I want to bring to your attention. The first one is Section 4, which is the participation agreement, which is basically here is the LEAs, sorry, not the LEAs, the participating agencies. So USBE being one of them, or the K-12 information, as we participate and share this information, what this is telling us is, one, our agency is the owner of our data, and we also authorize and have the kill switch, meaning we will share or we will not share based upon our controls that we put in place. And when we say sharing this data, the difference between what this is now is the ability for an individual record to transfer, to be matched, and then be paired with another agency. So to give you an example, we're working with the Admit Utah process, which is for students who and families who want to pre-register for any of the universities. The concept is, how are we going to send the information almost directly from our LEA's SIS system over to USHE? And the mechanism or the control is going to be, is that we're putting in place is the information would flow from the SIS into USIMS, and then from USIMS it would hit their API and transfer over. It has to have parental permission for that to flow, but that's the process of what's going on. So we're kind of talking about, according to their rules, USBE within the agreement has control over the data that we would be giving them. And I hope it's fairly straightforward. What we're saying is this information will flow up to them, and then just hopefully you've had a chance to read through basically the different points and the details inside of there. I'm happy to answer any of those if you have further questions about it. The next section just want to highlight is the requested architecture and approval. So if another agency, so for example, DHHS, or if Vital Statistics or USHE or Department of Commerce or someone else is trying to receive information from USB, again, on the record. So for example, let's say a student has graduated and they need to get their records of sorts. So it could be a transcript. And this is just more advanced technology. The answer is the other agency can come through and request the data. And as long as USB is in agreement that this information is correct, then it could come through, match, retrieve that requested information, and then pull it through and go to the requesting agency. So basically it's making this bridge or this flow through between the information as it's being requested. And then this is in our efforts to increase our interoperability and modernization, not only just within USBE and our LEAs, but with other partnering organizations. And with that, that's the gist of this information item in my presentation.
Thank you, Director Breff. I apologize. My board laptop just restarted right in the middle of when you were speaking. So I'm sorry if I went on MIA for a minute. I'm on a tiny phone now, and I just appreciate you sharing that information. It's really important because the research that we get and the partnering that we do with UDRC gives us pretty, well, very valuable information. And so thanks for looking at this and protecting and putting safeguards into place.
And if I may just add to it, this is not about research. The research is a component, but the research was already in place. This is in addition to the research. This is actually the sharing of information when the individual or the parent is requesting the information to be transferred to another agency. So there's a slight difference, and I just want to make sure that that's clear. The research is still happening, but the work of bridge and what this agreement is talking about is not about the research and the sharing agreements that are already in place for those. This is an enhancement that's being built and put into place with its basically partner agreement of this is how all the agencies will share and will have control what flows and the regulations behind that and the security and such. So that's just additional clarification that research is still happening. This is an enhancement that we're talking about here.
Thank you. And I actually am going to have a UDRC action item request. I'm going to make at the end of the meeting. I'm saying this out loud so I don't forget. but thank you for giving us information on this. Members, if you have a comment, will you speak up now while my board laptop is rebooting because I can't see you?
I'll ask a question, Chair, if I could.
Please.
I'm wondering, is this so? And I'm sorry, Aaron, if you mentioned this already. Where is this in the process? I guess my question are there existing data requests or requests that are currently pending that are going to be affected by this, or are we in good shape?
Right now, we're in good shape because the system, this bridge system, is actually not functioning yet. We're still doing pilot testing of the technology, and the APIs are not connected yet. With that said, but the plan is in the future when there is a request to move information back and forth, and this would be the avenue to do that.
Thank you.
Does that help?
That's helpful. I either missed or it wasn't spoken of the implementation timeline.
Yeah, and just sharing, we're about to enter our 4th year of the 4 years of the work that we've been doing. So the plan is this 4th year we'll start connecting the APIs and testing some things through, and then we should be at full implementation about this time next year.
Hey, thank you so much. We appreciate that information, Director Bruff. Always appreciate learning from you. Let's move on to item 3.9, which is information on special education funding options for schools and LEAs with high rates of special education students. I think it's important to note here, just for the public's awareness and just a reminder, the board has already taken motions on this. They've already passed through the full board. If I'm remembering correctly, and my understanding is correct. But a lot of work has been going on and conversations and trying to know how do we get to what right looks like and what is that even? And so this is just an information item that I believe Specialist Dale Frost is going to share with us and just give a kind of a recap on little bit of where we've been in the context and what the options have been and where we're at right now.
Thank you, Chair Davis. Dale Frost, Minimum School Program Administrator. Can you hear me? Just wanted to make sure. Yes. Okay. Before we dive into the backup, and I'll share my screen soon, I wanted to kind of talk about that there's really a confluence of 4 different special education related issues and problems, and they're all kind of mixed up in these different ideas. And I just wanted to articulate those first because some of these options, and when I say options, it kind of brings to mind that you have to choose one. These are not independently, like you as policymakers can advance more than one, especially in certain circumstances. The first issue is that is kind of a short-term issue with Spectrum Academy. They cannot expand according to our 277479 without losing $8 to $9 million of special education funds, and that's kind of existential for them. But there are broader concerns about similarly situated schools that are part of larger LEAs, but that have also as many or more special education schools, and concerns that those schools have to be because of the structure of the special education funding formulas, have to be supported from other funding sources within the LEA's budget. The third is an even broader concern that that's happening not just at the school level, but at the student level for those students with especially high cost sped services. Whether you have, 1 or 100 students who need almost full-time care, they cost a lot, and the formula basically is built on averages. And so that could work for a large district. It doesn't work well for a Spectrum Academy. And then underlying all of this is an issue that we have a lack of SPED cost data. LEAs have to, with their annual financial report, provide special education cost data. But if you've had any conversations with them, many LEAs have to supplement their special education budgets with property taxes for school districts or K-12 funds, WPU funds, otherwise. But there are concerns about maintenance of effort, which are the federal requirements that you maintain a certain level of spending year after year. So if you have a spike in that kind of spending one year, you might do that and not identify it as special education funds so that you don't have to, continue that level of spending in the future. And so what that means is it's hard to know what the right level of funding is for special education. So if I can share my screen and kind of dive into that.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yes, absolutely.
I think you and I, even just together, and I know you much more than I have probably spent 20 hours on just this issue offline, and you so succinctly and clearly captured the nuance of all of the pieces of that puzzle in that summary. I just am in awe. So thank you.
Unfortunately,
wow.
sometimes these things get drilled into you as these issues are, we've been working on this for a long time, and there's a lot of related and interrelated issues here. And
you distilled down to the most important points of all these puzzle pieces. So thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry.
So again, just to summarize, Spectrum has an issue, but there are schools like Spectrum that have similar issues, but Spectrum has the immediate issue. And then there are concerns just about these higher cost special education services for students. And it's very difficult as policymakers to say this is the right level of funding because not everything is reported. Okay. Oh, sorry, Siri just started talking to me. I'm silencing my phone. Okay. All right. So as you know, we've there's been a few meetings with folks from the Office of the Legislative Fiscal Analyst, the Office of Legislative Research and General Counsel, and Chair White, who is the PEA chair on the House side, as well as folks from Spectrum Academy, the Charter Board, charter organizations. There are a lot of folks who are interested in different aspects of this, as well as folks from the board. So we had a few meetings on this, and I just wanted to kind of give you the full range of ideas to try to address one or more of those kind of broader concerns. And I've organized these as options A through F. And then the second page here shows kind of phase-in options for all of these. And there's a whole lot of nuance under here that I don't, just because it's really easy in these conversations to lose the forest through the trees. And so I've made certain assumptions. All of these are ongoing funds, but not every option has to be paid for with ongoing funds. For example, if the legislature wanted to do something like option C, they could, multiply the statewide cost by 3 and provide that 1 year using PSRA funds. You were just talking about PSRA, and have that set aside. It doesn't have to be WPU based. But if you look here in option C, you're like, why are there ongoing costs that are annualized every year? This is because trying to make them comparable across them, I made all of these WPU based. So if you increase the WPUs, that makes increasing the WPU value in the future slightly more expensive, if that makes sense. Also, you know, I wanted, for example, like option A is kind of that existential threat for Spectrum at least as it currently operates right now. But if you look at and you say, oh, $1 million for Spectrum for option E and F, how do you compare those? Which is why, you know, E and F, that $1 million is a present value calculation. If you phase that in over 10 years, you're talking about Spectrum having to absorb $100,000 into their budget every year. That's a whole lot more doable than $1 million all at once, if that makes sense. So anyways, so option A would simply be that, you know, as we've talked about dealing with this unexpected, you know, this SPED ratio issue with other charters, and we've already started ratcheting down those SPED ratios over 3 years to bring Spectrum into that level, not provide any additional funding, and not allow Spectrum to expand into St. George. That's what option A would look like. And I wanted to be clear that I have not heard any policymaker pushing for option A, but I have heard folks from LFA saying things like, hey, Spectrum, if they're a higher cost model, and that is going to be perpetuated, the legislature should probably have a greater say in that and have some sort of additional review before, you know, a Spectrum or similarly situated LEA would be able to expand. Option B would be, you know, a situation where they're saying you can't expand, but you can keep your existing funding, and then we're going to fund the legislature would allocate to the board $200,000 for a cost study. You know, this would look at, you know, and there's a lot of questions on, well, what should the cost study look like and why did we pick 200,000? Well, from 2018 to 2020, there was a contract that the board made with WestEd to do a broad funding study, and that resulted in the at-risk add-on program, as well as the you know, good portions of the NEST formula. That cost $266,000. And so, you know, but that had multiple pieces and parts. So this would probably be simpler, but obviously 266,000 8 years ago, you know, stretched further. So that's kind of our placeholder of what we think a cost study could cost. It's somewhere in that ballpark. I'm going to continue. Please let me know if you have questions. Option C would be the one, you know, I don't want to speak for Chair White, but it sounded like in his reactions in the meetings that he'd probably be leaning somewhere in this vicinity, which would be to find, you know, provide a pot of funding so that Spectrum can stay at a little less their current ratio right now, but at 2.5 WPUs per student, including their St. George campus, and then funding this cost study that we talked about, and that there'd be no phase down of Spectrum funding. And that would cost $1.6 million per year, plus that 200,000. So option D, E, and F, these start to get into those broader issues that we're talking about, where option D would essentially be option C, but treat all schools, not just LEAs, but all schools with more than 70% SPED students at this higher WPU level. And that would cost 11.2 million is my estimate right now. These are for fiscal 28 numbers, but as you can see here, if we phased in option D over 2 years, then we're talking about more like $5.7 million to phase that in. Option E and F, let me start with F. So it's my understanding that this option F aligns with what the board has already acted on. That would be essentially the $80 million cost item. It's actually 90 million. Why is it 82? Because in this option, you'd also phase down spectrum over time. That's why when we're talking about perpetuating the double standard in the formula, you would be upping one formula while you bring one down. And so that's the net cost there. But that would bring, all self-contained students. So this is special education students who receive 180 minutes or more of special education services per day would generate 2.5 WPUs instead of the one special ed WPU right now. And then option E is kind of the most complicated of these. We'd have to create a new time D code, and this would be essentially for the full-time special education students that need 300 minutes per day or more, and that would be weighted higher, but those between 180 and 300 would be weighted lower than option F, but still more than currently. And I brought this option here just because it substantially impacts spectrum the same. It has a little bit more of a negative impact on spectrum, but not significantly more, but costs significantly less to the state. And so, but this kind of gets to the question, we still don't know what the right cost number is for these high cost special education students. But 2.5 WPUs is kind of the range where spectrum would be able to continue to operate with their current their current model as it stands right now. I can go into more specifics over here on kind of phase and options. You'll see that there's different timelines for each one. I tried to kind of pick an option where the annual cost would be to the state would be less than $10 million, or what seemed reasonable for the specific option in play. And then I do want to make one more point here. Options, well, C if it applied in perpetuity, but D, E, and F, there's kind of a fundamental policy question that needs to be decided upon by the legislature and the board. Right now, there are no levels in special education funding. Basically, if you're a special education student, you're funded at exactly the same level, whether you need 10 minutes of special education services or 300 minutes of special education services. There's some nuance for the self-contained kids where all of it is in the special education budget, where for resource kids, half of it's in the K-12 or the general ed budget, but the funding levels are the same, essentially. D, E, and F goes into more of a levels system where there would be certain special education students, whether they're in a certain school or a certain number of minutes, that would generate more funding than other special education students. And most other states have some sort of level system. Having worked in 3 other states and worked in and know a lot more about the Arizona formula. Arizona has 5 or 6 different levels. And there are constantly concerns by policymakers on if the funding formula itself is actually driving behavior within LEAs to identify students. Right now, whether an LEA creates a specialized school or identifies a number of minutes, there's no financial reason to do, because there's no difference, to do one thing or the other. And so there's no concerns on that front. And the logic is that, on average, you'll have some students who cost less than the average, some students who cost more, and it should, work itself out and be about right overall. That tends to work for a large district like Davis or Alpine, does not work very well for a spectrum academy. So that's the last point. I just wanted to be clear that they're embedded in these broader options is this policy shift that would be to fund levels of any kind for special education students. So that concludes my remarks. I see that Board Member Bogus has her hand up. Happy to answer any questions.
Member Bogus, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Davis. I am wondering, Mr. Frost, could it be said that the opposite is true, that if the funding mechanism is equal, there's no reason to identify or put in an IEP more minutes because there's no more money in it and it wouldn't be funded? Could it be said that the opposite is also true?
Board Member Bogus, I agree, that there, can I try to rephrase yours, that there is,
Yes.
that there is a disincentive to identify additional minutes because you receive no additional funds for that. Or another way to say it is that no additional funds are there to cover those costs. And once the services are on an IEP, those are legally required by the LEA. So I'm not trying to say that there's no, a standardized formula has pros and cons. There are trade-offs, and you're absolutely identifying one of those. The pro for level system is that you're probably more accurately identifying funding for the higher cost students, but it does change the incentive structure too. Does that answer your question?
It does. And I'm just going to have to think on this. Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah, I would say currently there is no necessarily extra funding. Well, currently our LEAs are saying they're subsidizing heavily from their general education funds for students who are already self-contained, receiving 180 minutes or more per day, but there's not enough special education funding to fund those. IDEA, when it was created, was supposed to fund at 48%, I think, and it's been funding at historically, if Leah was here, she'd correct me on all this, or maybe Dale will, but it's been funding more historically around less than 14%, I think. And then, we have issues with our state funds too. And then this maintenance of operation requirements make as Dale mentioned earlier in the meeting, when the LEAs are supplementing with their general ed funds, they don't probably want to code it as special ed because then it messes up all their MOE or puts in a position like, are we going to be able to pay this next year? And then we're legally beholden to do it. So it's kind of a quagmire issue. And I do think that's why the legislature might request and fund a cost function analysis. But just for the public's remember and awareness, the board has made one of its top priorities special education funding and looking at self-contained funding in particular. It did vote to support a 10-year phase-in on an $89 million ask for increasing the special education funding for self-contained students to 2.5 WPU. A different motion that the board passed, if I remember correctly, also is taking a smaller view and looking just at the students with over 70% preponderance of special education IEPs in the school. So like a Spectrum, Karisu, ATEC, that kind of a thing. And that is about a $10 million price tag there. And then there's a Spectrum specific option as
Chair, can I just show you're right. So
I just was gonna say is the one that you mentioned that I think that after our meetings that it seemed like Representative White was leaning toward.
Correct.
But the LFA made it clear that that would be just for the St. George expansion and then no more until and when some of these other studies are done.
That was certainly part of it. Yeah. So yeah, the option D, you'd said 10 million. I think it's a little more like 11 million, but again,
Thank you.
But yeah, so and I wanted to show the numbers on year one. So if, for example, the board wanted to advocate for option D and option F, option D with the 2-year phase and option F with the 10-year phase, and you're talking about 8.3 plus $5.6 million. So about $13 million to do both in year one, right? $14 million to do both in year 2. And then after that, it's $8 to $9 million each year as that ramps up. So I just kind of trying to just crosswalk, because there's a lot of numbers here, trying to see like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
And I think that is important to go to the point that these are not mutually exclusive. Clearly, some of them are. Some of them would not work well in tandem, but some could for sure.
Yeah, and so, I guess the committee will, and the board really has already taken action, but do we want to take additional motions? This is not an action item today. This was agendized as an information item. So, if we think we want to do more than what we've already done, then we would need to ask for an action item to come back. Or we can, and that would be to either just go with the 1 year spectrum only option. The other two options we've already asked for would allow spectrum to expand. So we've already gotten that yes from them. If we want to vote for another smaller option, or we want to vote for a cost function analysis, the only question is if we vote to request a cost function analysis, then you're prolonging your other two requests that we've made. And I personally kind of think, after talking with the LFA, that legislature may do that anyway. And I don't know that we want to necessarily dive into more action items or motions, but the committee members, you may want to. So these are just putting it all out on the table to say there's just a lot of pieces to this puzzle to be thought about.
So Chair Davis, I don't mind bringing this back as an action item, but I don't want to send the message that I intend to take action. But I don't mind bringing it back so that we can discuss that. But I could not say at this time that I would intend to take action on any of those options, if that makes sense. But
yeah,
it gives me more time to think about it, and it puts us in a place where we're not months behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not opposed to it either, but I don't know that I would take another action. I'm trying to just think where the benefit would be, because the legislature knows that it can take that small one-time approach, and that's what we talked about with Representative White. So I don't know if we just stick to the two we've already done. Chair Hymas, what are your thoughts? Because you were in that meeting with the LFA.
Yeah, I know. I'm in a similar vein. It's difficult. We're still gathering information or trying to make decisions with the LFA. We want to do what's best, but we want to be fair. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. We could put it as an action item. I couldn't make a great vote today, though, right? And I don't know about next month.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes.
And this is more of a process question, and I don't know if Scott or you or Chair Hymas or would have answers, because we don't know exactly when and what the legislature will do. I don't think this is so. Deputy Superintendent Jones, is this issue agendized for the PEA meeting?
Yes, and if I may, Madam Chair, answer this question through you. Yes, in the general sense of the focus on special education funding.
But it's not clear if PEA will discuss the spectrum issues in particular. Am I correct?
No, I don't. I'm not aware of they're going to that level.
Right.
Special education funding is a topic.
Yeah, so just to help you all, in my opinion, it's unclear whether you all will see anything substantive from the legislature before you see a bill draft I would be surprised if there isn't a bill of some kind, on the spectrum issue. But as you know, we might not see that till late January, February. Um, and but likely we would, they've been working well with us and as partners. So hopefully we see something and can kind of report something, but likely something akin to an option C, whether it's with one-time funding or ongoing, I don't know. We would see some version of that introduced. I don't know if you'd see it as part of PEA or EAC, or maybe it's an RFA through the legislature. So I hopefully that's helpful as you're trying to figure out next steps.
Yeah, and I just, in full transparency, I did ask the LFA what what is going to be helpful to see progress here, and he said it would be helpful if you'd request a cost function analysis. Um, and so I appreciated that information, but our board had already taken motions on the special ed funding at that time to request. And our local folks had put special ed funding at the top of their priorities for the legislative session. So I don't know if maybe we just take a conceptual motion in the full board that says we understand that a cost function analysis may be preferred by the legislature. I just don't want to undermine what our board members have already done by requesting the special ed funding.
Did you just
But
suggest a conceptual vote in a board meeting? Are you trying to kill
yes,
me?
Chair Hymas, we have done it before.
Okay.
Not a lot, but we
Not a
have
lot.
done it. We have done it. I don't know. Maybe we just let
Okay.
it lie for now. But
What
certainly
are,
in our conversations, we need to know and understand that may be something that's going to be requested by the legislature, and it would be fair because of all of these coding issues and MOE issues and supplemental conversations.
Chair, if I could ask Scott, do you think I'm doubtful. Do you think we're going to gain any additional information from PEA? We're giving them information. I'm not expecting that we'll receive any, but
No, not in the sense of during, either
yeah.
this meeting or the next one, just by virtue of the fact that this particular topic, special education funding, the LFAs are going to present on it. We may have a little bit of time to, follow up on their presentation, but highly unlikely. The agenda's packed, and so short answer through you, Madam Chair, to the chairs now.
Okay. Thank you both.
Matt, could you repeat that question one time? I'm sorry, I'm dealing with a little bit of a family emergency on the sideline here. Can you tell me what your question was?
My question, and Scott answered it masterfully, was that I just didn't know if during our PEA meetings, if we were going to gain any additional insight. I was very doubtful. Scott confirmed that we're not going to gain anything. We're giving information. They're not going to go into detail of this nature. Any information we can gather that will give us a better idea of what the legislature wants to do, because they're in a similar boat that we are.
Mhm.
They don't want to see they don't want to see a school fail, and we're not saying that Spectrum will fail. It's just that they won't be able to expand, and
Right.
they provide some fantastic services, and so there's many people who want them to be successful, that want them to grow, but at what cost? That's the battle that we're all facing.
Because we should also, for transparency purpose, remember that we have already given a waiver to Spectrum that we did not give to the other schools that are
Right.
being reduced in funding, the other charter schools. They're going to keep the funding that the other schools are losing. And so already they've kind of become a financial anomaly. And so this is what the legislature now is looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So, ma'am, if I may,
Yes.
well, I think we're just in that space where as a state board, you know, I mean, right, wrong, and different to this is we're in the sense of what benefits the state as a whole, right? It's not that we don't care about spectrum or we want to see like the chair is pointing out, but the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So where funding is a scarce resource, we tend to focus, you know, we want to help, we love all our schools, we love them. But our interest is in the interest of all the statewide, you know, statewide special education students, right? So trying to find that sweet spot of maximizing what little resources we get or scarce resources, I don't mean that critically, is really the task of us, of the board and staff, right? So because what does help though is when we do get in these situations with particular LEAs and their needs for their students, it helps us to really focus on, well, what would be a mutually beneficial funding level for special education that also might help them, you know, with that. So instead of becoming, you know, ultra focused on money for spectrum, we say money for special education students, but hopefully something similar where we can see that, where we get that, you know, sweet spot of organization. And if I may, Madam Chair, just real quick, maybe I missed this in the discussion, but I'll check in with Sam and Dale, but isn't there a business or a request for funding related to special education?
Yes, we've taken two already.
Right. So, and I think we're
Motions.
talking about that later today. Those two items got moved into the, you know, catch up agenda item for today. So that actually may be where, because we are where we are at the point in time where you're in your August meeting, you know, the milestone that's coming up is, you know, of course, your October meeting where you make whatever proposal is necessary under the law to the governor's office, right? So you may want to just, all I'm saying is you may just want to further this discussion in front of the full board related to those funding requests to try to see if we can, you know, find that sweet spot for special education funding, which to your point, Madam Chair, you know, JLC, everybody, we're all interested in special education funding, but finding that, you know, amount or balance to do it, you know, with what limited resources we have is really the key task for everyone. So I hope that helps.
That's helpful and is a great summary. And I just want to add in, just in case anybody from Spectrum is listening, that they have been really great to work with through this whole thing. And they've said, we want to continue. We can only continue if we have this extra funding from the waiver that we've been given. We can only expand if we get those extra funds, but we want great things for special education students across the state. They've been super to work with. I just want to add that in also, and appreciate you and the work that we've done. Thank you. Let's move on to the next information item, which is the recognition of progress, achievements, and improvements. And we have
the school, but each year we progressively improved on the number of LEAs that qualify or eligible for, because we're balancing compliance with support with the funding. We keep increasing the amount of LEAs that are in the initial distribution, you know, which goes out in July. And why that, the so what of that is, as we all know, the first quarter of any fiscal year, July, August, September, is typically really heavy on or burdensome on all of our LEAs, especially our smaller ones for cash flow, right? And so their efforts in that joint effort with principals in ensuring that, you know, they meet the requirements of the code of the program itself, they've struck, I think, a really balanced approach to ensuring that we can maximize distribution of funds as early as possible in the fiscal year. Now, in situations we have, or in certain years, we have situations where there's a new charter school standing up or something. So that takes a little bit longer, right? We have to do this. So we're always going to have those one-offs where we may not
ever get to 100% of every LEA and every school was, you know, fully distributed to in July. There's other mitigating factors. But if we could turn it over to Director Plan and her great team, just to further expand on this FY27 funding overview, I think the public and yourselves will be pretty impressed with how well we're managing and controlling funds and getting them to the end of the row, getting the water to the end of the row. So, Paula, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm really pleased to be able to share with you my amazing team and the work that they have done to put this in place. I think the other really exciting thing that we have just learned this morning is that we will be able to distribute funds to all but, well, we have one school that is not a new school that is working to get the distribution, get their plan ready for a distribution. If they get it in and approved today, then we will distribute to every school in the state, with the exception of 8 new schools that will assemble councils when the school year begins, and then they'll submit their plans. So this is the best it's ever been, and they're great.
Excellent. Love to hear that.
Yeah, did you wanna, there's a visual up, Paula, I mean, that, you know, everyone can see, the public can see how much available funding was, and then how, you know, how many schools broken out by charters, districts, and of course, the USBE itself. So, you know, 1,024 schools. So when Paula says, you know, schools are getting the money, 1,024 schools. That's a lot of schools across our state that, you know, will benefit from the cash flow from this particular source.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then at your direction, Madam Chair, I'd like to recognize our members of our financial operations team, specifically Sarah Grisenti, Brian Ross, Rebecca Nielsen, and Sarah Harward. And then also, you know, we owe and honor our past employees. And so specific to this recognition, in addition to who I just named, we want to recognize past staff and Angie Stallings and Sarah Young. Because recently there was a independent or external review of the stewardship of our federal funds and our commitment to the accountability of the ARPA, the COVID funds. So following that comprehensive review by the GOPD, we were found to have used our ARPA coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds in full compliance with U.S. Treasury guidance, with no findings of non-compliance or discrepancies. And so by way of comparison, not competition or anything, other states have struggled and are, you know, under some with serious, you know, stress because they didn't manage it too. So I equate this success or the success of this review to just the competency and capability of the staff that I mentioned, both current and prior, for doing an excellent job. Because what that is, so what if this is, that means it made a difference. The money that we got went to the right end of the road. It went to the right place. It was used for the right purposes. It, you know, it was a limited, it wasn't a holistic review. It was a particular, you know, segment or portion of the use of the funding. But we can oftentimes extrapolate that if we were successful in that aspect, we were also successful in the control and management, and then ultimately the use throughout our whole state of these very, very important funds during that unfortunate time in our history. So yeah, just without further ado, I mean, that's just incredible.
Can I mention something before you move on to 3.15?
Sure.
having been here during that time, unless you lived through it on this board, nobody will have any idea what these people went through. I mean, these people that Scott's talking about right now, we're talking about late nights, early mornings, sometimes just round the clock work. We were working on nobody, it was completely uncharted territory. We had to deal with executive orders from different people and how to make that work. And while a lot of states were just totally shutting down, we were trying to figure out any way to keep our schools open. We were ordering thousands of gallons of just hand sanitizer. We were distributing out to schools in addition to trying to work on so many plans by schools to use all this federal COVID funding that was coming in and using it in ways that would make sense academically to keep the doors open and keep kids learning. It was blow your mind. And right, wrong, or indifferent, people have strong feelings about COVID. And I used to say that before COVID, everyone was working really hard, but you can't make everyone happy. And since COVID, everyone got mad. And now I say everyone's working 3 times as hard and you can't make anyone happy. It's just like turn the world on its ear. But I just can't stress enough how the fact that we have an audit like this is almost impossible. I mean, these people were pretty Herculean, and I just want to add my thanks to them, to Deputy Superintendent Jones, and that includes Deputy Superintendent Jones, by the way. Thank you to you also and your team.
Unless Cami virtually kicks me under the table, and I think I've covered those. Cami, did I miss anything on?
We do have the ACFE certificates as well.
Yes. Okay. Can you pull that up? Yes. So we have, I'm just really grateful for, we're going to recognize individuals here for going above and beyond and getting, their competency levels increased by earning particular credentials. And, Cole Shakespeare, who, we were going to introduce at the beginning of the meeting, but, was traveling, I think. He recently got his certified fraud examiner, or certified as a certified fraud examiner. So, and I'm into this, well, what's the so what of this? I mean, this just really increases our competency and technical skills and capabilities to, yes, I mean, it's a monitoring aspect. It's a, looking for, potential fraud and risk management of those types of things. But Mr. Shakespeare, and who I'll recognize here in just a second, are instrumental in, a lot of people say monitoring is, negative, or it's something. No, actually, monitoring can actually be used in a positive way to help support our LEAs in getting to what right is with proper use of funds, i.e. school fees, those types of things. But at the same time, when these guys build their skill sets, they can also look out, for the taxpayer, for fraud or for, signs or risk that fraud could occur in any particular program. I use school fees quite a bit because Mr. Shakespeare, leads that awesome monitoring team. But, Mr. Shakespeare getting his certified fraud examiner while doing all the duties and responsibilities in this is quite an accomplishment. And then I'd also like to recognize Jeff Wilcox. He was here and introduced himself to you all. He also was approved to become a certified fraud examiner. And so he has that credential. So adding these credentials really adds to, our, being recognized by LEAs that there are competent people monitoring their use of funds, but then in a supportive way. And then also too, that we're all, obviously looking out for the taxpayer and for the public interest in mitigating against fraudulent activities. So we appreciate both of them for their diligence and extra effort to raise their technical and accounting skills, if you will.
Thank you.
Okay. And so that does
Impressive.
conclude item 3.14. So your direction, then we can move to 3.15.
Great. Thank you. Looks like we have Jared Felt for that. And
Yes.
you, one of you.
Well, Jared, yeah, I'll go to Jared. Haha. Yeah. So
Thank you, Chair. Jared Felt, USBE IT Director. Before we jump over to the product owners for the USIMS team, I just wanted to point out something that I include on all of the PMRs. Just our ongoing critical constraint of new work that comes in, changes from legislation that have a timeline to be built into our systems by a certain date. A lot of times that has to be built into our legacy systems like Utrex and then added to the backlog of USIMS. So that does take extra time and rework, but we're working through that. Chair, if it's okay, we'll jump down to the educator team, and Tim Davis will just give a brief update, and then we'll go from there.
Good morning, Tim Davis, product owner, educator domain. So what the educator domain recently has been building is we're working towards delivering the assignment ability and employment ability and termination functionality inside of USIMS for the educator domain for the LEAs to start using those things inside of USIMS instead of using it in Cactus. And so we've just been working hard towards that. But during the month of June and July, since we last met, Cactus did their rollover process. USIMS has to go down for that. We only went down for a day. And then that was the June 30th through July 1st. And then July 1st, we reestablished our direct connection with the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, BCI, for background check. So background check information was still coming into USBE through USIMS and Cactus. And then when when the rollover was complete, we turned on USIMS features and functionality for all educators to continue to be able to do the things that they need to do inside of USIMS, such as renewing their license, updating their ethics review, updating addresses, etc. And that is my update. Any questions?
I don't see any. Thank you, Tim. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Chair Davis.
And then we'll go down to the student domain, and that's Mark Waddups. Mark.
Hello, board members. Just to give you a quick update on student domain, we now have 33, actually, we now have 34 power school districts that are now have the student backpack available and it's live. We're working through helping each of the different districts in conjunction with the SIS vendors to get them set up to kind of white glove, if you will, that experience, as it will help us also with further USIMS functionality that we'll be creating in the future. Aspire, we have 102 Aspire LEAs that are now have the student growth scores, and they're continuing to implement different portions of the student backpack with their with those particular districts and SAS support staff. For the USIMS portion and the Utrex assumption, we're finishing ingesting the data from LEAs and getting feature parity with Utrex. And we're also working on the data validations of that data that's submitted, which is critical for helping to ensure that we have accurate data and a way to work with those LEAs and improve the process over what we do today for through Utrex. Happy to answer any questions. The last thing I'll say is we continue to look for ways to leverage AI to speed up the output and the quality of the work and do so safely. And we're starting to see some of the benefits of doing that.
Thank you, Specialist Waddups.
All right.
Appreciate
and then
that.
the last domain is finance, and we'll, if it's okay, we'll turn it to Don Moody.
Yes.
Thank you, Director Felt. Just wanted to highlight 3 areas that the finance domain work that we've demoed both to our USB finance stakeholders and to the focus working group. We've been working on the certification calculations. When the finance API receives financial data, the actuals from the LEA, there are checks both at the fund level and at the program level that need to be performed. We've successfully done a lot of those checks on the fund side, and we're working right now on that on the program side as well. And we've actually demoed how that workflow appears to the LEAs in their certification process. We've also continuing our work with the 8 external vendors that are connecting to our external API. We're at the point now where we can actually show that data in a couple different ways to end users. One is that we've integrated Power BI, which is a data visualization tool, to allow for LEAs to actually look at the data in kind of a more visually friendly format, kind of after the fact, and we can look at that with one LEA right now, and we're looking to do comparisons both between LEAs and across fiscal years. So we'll be working on that over the next few months. We also have, in addition to kind of the near real time with Power BI, we also have the USB Finance and the LEAs can actually look at that data in real time within the UI and filter that accordingly. We're also building as part of the certification process, we're building the AFR and APR formatting to better assist the LEAs to make sure that they can check the financial data that they're submitting to USBE. At a very high level, those are the updates that I wanted to share with you on the finance domain. Please let me know if you have any questions.
All right, Chair, that concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you. I'm not seeing hands, so I'm going to circle back to what you said in the very beginning, Director Felt, and that is that you have little projects being entered into this big project constantly, and I think we sit here in this. Maybe the other committee members are better than I am, but I heard it, but it didn't register to me until I was sitting in the desk of Director Brinkley, well, across the desk from her, and she was looking at me face to face, and she said, former Director Brinkley, and said, "This is not," I'm like, well, "What's the ETA? And is our timeline on task?" And she said, "This is not one project with a static timeline. This is like one project with a timeline with constant other projects being put in. Our licensing department may want to do something different. We have to change what's happening in development. Legislature wants to do something different. We have to change what's happening in development." And there's all these different splinter areas that have constant changes. And so it's like we're working so hard and the targets keep changing. And I feel like all of you that just presented are like ducks. And you come here and you present to us and you're totally calm on the surface. And every time one of these new changes hits, you're just paddling underneath the ocean, trying to hustle to get it back up and try to somehow stay on this timeline that we've created for you. And I just want you to know that we see you, we appreciate you. You come with very clear and succinct reports, but we know there's just so much going on under the surface there, and appreciate all you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's move to 3.15, our last agenda item. We have Grants Manager Rebecca Nielsen, who was honored in our full board meeting yesterday.
Thank you. Cami, can you give me presentation rights or open the slideshow, either one? Oh, thank you very much. And share. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint slides? Perfect.
Yes.
Rebecca Nielsen, Director of Grants Administration, reporting on the Utah Grants PMR for the month of August. We're going to be going through a brief contract overview. We'll be discussing development work completed and in progress, proposed contract amendments, and future work along with the timeline for that future work. So first, I would like to remind the committee that we are in contract with REI Systems, Inc. for the delivery of the Utah Grants product. Our contract is set to expire in September 6th of 2026. However, the contract includes 2 one-year renewal options. We intend to utilize those renewal options, and we'll talk more about future contract work in a couple slides. Right now, I just wanted to address that we are wrapping up this current contract period, so we don't have a lot of development going on currently. So it's an exciting period of time that we're transitioning from closing out current contract activities and entering into new contract activities. So what has been completed since the last we met is converting all of our CNP provider payments into Utah grants. This was a large undertaking, both from a development standpoint as well as from program staff at USBE. There was a lot of programmatic change and process change related to getting the CNP provider payments running through Utah grants. It's a huge lift, and we have now done that for 2 successful months. And it's gone very, very well. The reason why we did that is so that we could eventually run all of our reporting, federal grant reporting, through the Utah grant system, and we didn't have to run 2 separate reports, one for CNP provider payments and one for all other payments that are running out of Utah grants. So that will definitely add to our reporting efficiency. The report that I'm talking about for efficiency is the FFATA report. The FFATA is the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act. This is the requirement for recipients of federal funds to report on flow-through activities. Who are we issuing grants to with the receipt of our federal funds? As you know, USBE passes through the majority of our federal funds to our LEAs and sometimes our CBOs. And in the case of CNP grants, to our providers of meals. Anytime that we flow grants through, we have to report that in sam.gov. For our staff, that's a large process. We have a lot of grants, a lot of money that are flowing through the USBE. This new development that is currently ongoing will help us to add efficiency to that process and have a streamlined report that will be a click of a button with an API connectivity directly to sam.gov that will make that reporting much more efficient. We're currently in the process of testing that. It's been fully developed, and we have given feedback to our vendor. There's a few tweaks that we need to have them make, and then we will continue testing. We expect that to be done likely the end of this month is our hope. The new contract that is being proposed is that we actually extend the contract for the 2 renewal options. Depending on funding availability, we'll probably try to do that under 1 contract. We're still working with finance to figure out what we have for available funding. But if we can, we'll issue a contract with REI for 2 years of licenses. And then we have some future development work in the plans, a 3.0 upgrade, and then also some USBE directed ongoing development. The 3.0 upgrade is exciting. This is very small, and I know it's hard to read, but it is in the backup. The major components of the 3.0 upgrade are bringing us from one version of Salesforce into the current version of Salesforce. We have been operating on a very old version of Salesforce that is now about 8 years old. We need to get into Salesforce Lightning and the most current version of Salesforce, and that's going to take a lot of background work, underlying code change, making sure that everything still works. That's going to be really necessary for us to continue our work with GovGrants and with REI with this product, but it's not going to show a lot to the front end users. It's going to enhance a lot of the back end functionality, making sure that we're stable and utilizing the most current products. We're not going to see as much of that from the front end user standpoint. However, there will be some items that we do see with a lot more functionality going forward in the future to build upon. The USBE directed items really are primarily focused on adding efficiency from USBE staff. So we have identified both through some audits, also through some consultation, that there are some areas that we can add efficiency to our workflows. And we would like to implement a lot of those efficiencies within this latest version of Utah Grants. For example, our payment request workflow currently has 6 different approvers for a payment request to be completed. We think we can add some efficiency reducing those number of approvers. Primarily, the focus on USBE directed development up to this point has really been LEA driven. How do we make it easier for the LEAs to utilize Utah grants? This latest version will continue on that note, but also adding some efficiency for USBE staff. The timeline for that will be, so the FAFATA updates, which are current development, are scheduled for the end of this month. And the 3.0 upgrades, along with the USBE directed known development items, would be March of 2027. We do have some room in the proposed budget for future items as they come up, because as Chair Davis mentioned, we are also dealing with a moving target. We have new development coming at us all of the time. So we are budgeting for some of that to come at us over the period of the 2 years, and expect that we'll have additional development in addition to the known items. And then this is how you get a hold of me or my team, and I'll open it up to the group for questions.
Thank you, Rebecca. You're awesome. I don't see any hands, but I will go through the appropriate channels of Deputy Superintendent Jones and Superintendent Hart, but it would be great to have you come for another update just for that very beginning portion of your presentation that's more specific to LEAs. We haven't had you to our reports and requirements task force for quite some time to give an update on the changes that are happening. We have a meeting the afternoon of September 19th, so I'll go through the appropriate channels, but that might be a good thing to have you come back and do a quick update there.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Appreciate you. That brings us to the end of our agenda, and I don't see any hands. I do have one request for the committee to consider for an agenda item for a UDRC research project, and that this is the math waiver that we gave Wasatch District. We have access to student data, but UDRC has access to higher ed data, which is why any research project we do with UDRC has to cross over to state agencies. And I would like to request an agenda item, because I've met with Wasatch curriculum director 3 times, superintendent 1 time, their math teacher team from high school 1 time. But it's all anecdotal. There's all these great things are happening, and we provided the USBE waiver, but do we scale that? Do we suggest it to others? Is the research showing that it really is making a difference in the claim that students will increase post-secondary attainment and math ability by offering Math 1010 at the junior year? So would 3 of you or more support bringing that as an agenda action item to explore possibly asking that for a research project?
Yeah, I would support that.
Supportive.
Okay, thank you all. I appreciate that. And we'll go ahead and then if we can add that into a request for an action item, that would be helpful. Any others? Okay, thanks for coming, everybody, today. We appreciate you. We are 27 minutes early. Enjoy that drive or an extra long lunch till we meet again, either virtually or in person. Thanks, everyone. Thank you to our amazing staff, too.